So yeah, just a quick introduction. I work for the Royal Commonwealth Society in London. We're a sort of civil society organisation, charity think tank that promotes the value and values of the Commonwealth. So both everything from human rights through to respect for the environment, and also why is the Commonwealth worthwhile in terms of any kind of work on these sorts of issues that we're talking about today. Why is it worth having in the world? So before I sort of launch into what role it can play on the SDGs, we need to look at what the Commonwealth is. And I take a network approach to this, so 3 sort of levels, one below the other, in terms of what the Commonwealth is today. At the top level, you've got governments. Ultimately, they bear the biggest responsibility for the implementation of any SDG. They're there to deliver for their citizens, and it's them who bear the responsibility for doing that. And there are 53 governments in the Commonwealth. That's where their responsibility lies. Coming down a level, you've got intergovernmental organisations. There are 3 of them. The Commonwealth of Learning has an obvious role to play in the education SDG and helps countries with access to education and distance learning. You've got the Commonwealth Foundation, who work with civil society, and we heard from Min Garcia this morning. They have an obvious role to play in supporting civil society directly, but they are an intergovernmental organisation. They're not a civil society organisation. Then finally, you have the Commonwealth Secretariat, if you like, the hub and the body that looks after the 53 governments and implements what those governments decide. Looking at this SDG in particular, which has a strong focus on justice, on rule of law, on peace and democracy, the areas of work that the Secretariat can most help with here are building institutions. The Commonwealth Secretariat builds institutions, and it does it quite well. Everything from empowering national human rights institutions, and there's a gathering of them under Commonwealth auspices starting in 2 days' time here in Malta, through to national women's machineries, through to youth councils and things like that. All crucial, as it were, political building blocks for rule of law, for parliamentary democracy and other kind of key parts of justice and peace. There are also quasi-governmental organisations, associations of Commonwealth parliamentarians who can help with parliamentary strengthening, and how the legislature can oversee executives across the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth Local Government Forum as well can help with building local government. And so the intergovernmental parts of the Commonwealth can play a role there. But we're here to talk about civil society, so that's where I'm going to turn my attention to. Civil society in the Commonwealth kind of brings these SDGs to life, really, I think. Let me turn over my page so I can remember what I'm going to say next. I think firstly, and this really taps into some of the conversations this morning that we had, civil society can act as a conduit between citizens and government, and that's the role it can really play. So Amitabh this morning spoke about how perhaps civil society is becoming disconnected from people, massive people's movements like the Arab Spring that are just disconnected from the civil society lobbying in the UN. Well, civil society can play the role that builds those people's movements and connects them to governments, and connects governments back to people. So there's a key role there. And then turning to some of the questions we were also looking at in terms of, well, should we be demanding our rights from governments, or should we be working with them? Do we work in the tent or out of the tent? And I think we have to take 2 approaches, a rights-based approach and an assets-based approach. So a rights-based approach is where we demand accountability. And both Ollie and our other speakers have outlined ways in which civil society can monitor governments, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to, and hold them to account. And that's really important. The other area in which they can really help brings in this assets-based approach. And that's something that the Royal Commonwealth Society has done quite a lot of work on with other Commonwealth partners. And it's about essentially acting as a partner for government, as difficult as that might seem for some of us, particularly when we know some of the things that governments get up to and we don't always like. But governments will often take some of the the things we're looking at, the issues we're looking at, and think, I don't really know how to go about implementing this. So that's where civil society can articulate a value in terms of proposing policy, proposing suggestions, taking the bits that governments find difficult offline and working on them, and then coming back to government and go, here's a proposal. So in terms of, that might be drafting legislation, as Gabby articulated this morning in terms of the LGBT advances here in Malta. Civil society took that political problem away from government, came up with draft legislation and worked with it, and came back to government with that policy solution. If you're a government, that means your civil society is a major asset to you implementing these SDGs, or any of the SDGs, or any other political programme that you have. And I think there's some obvious facets of civil society that can play a key role in this SDG. And we've had mixed views on lawyers over the last few hours. Lawyers are a key part of that, and associations of lawyers. Judges also have a role to play here. Journalists, human rights defenders, and many others. So to turn finally, and hopefully this will bring me under 10 minutes, to Commonwealth civil society. There are a number of organisations, I think about 70, who are specifically accredited to the Commonwealth Secretariat and wear Commonwealth hats. And all three of us on the panel here work for 3 of those organisations. This myriad of civil society groups, many of us are professional associations, some are more vague organisations, or more generalist organisations, sorry, including the 3 of us here. But there are many professional associations that bring industry-specific expertise and bring together those experts from across the entire Commonwealth. That means that those institutions can share knowledge, share expertise, and then act as again, to play that assets-based role for government in going, this is what worked in Canada, this is what worked in India, this is what worked in Lesotho, this is what worked in Tonga, and here's what didn't work, and therefore here's a range of proposals that might work for you, Mr. or Mrs. Government, when you go to implement your work. And I think those professional associations can build on kind of Commonwealth strengths of shared language, of similar institutions, similarly kind of political systems, similar legal systems, and these civil society associations can build on those strengths and as I said, hold different governments to account across the Commonwealth, but also act as a partner to support governments in implementing and take issues offline, work on them, and show governments how they can pave a way forward in implementing SDGs. How much time do I have left?
No, you're good.
I'm good. By how many minutes?
At least 2.
At least 2. Okay, I'll quickly finish then with just an example about what the Royal Commonwealth Society has been doing, which speaks to some of these things. I'm delighted that some of the members of the Commonwealth Equality Network here, and Donna and Gabby, we've been working on the issue of LGBT rights, hugely controversial subject in the Commonwealth. It probably won't be addressed at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting because so many Commonwealth countries criminalise same-sex, consensual adult same-sex activity. So, how can civil society play a role on that issue? Well, what the RCS has done, similar to Gabby, similar to many other institutions, is take that issue offline and work with it quietly with diplomats and with other Commonwealth stakeholders in a way that's not going to generate massive publicity that might upset political sensitivities across the world. It's about connecting to other civil society, particularly the Commonwealth Equality Network, and mapping what works in their country, how progress has been made in that country, and this could be anything from gender identity laws here in Malta to the employment laws in Botswana that include sexual orientation as a protected characteristic. And mapping that kind of work and finding the arguments that work for government to advance on this issue and presenting this what works policies and suggestions back to government. So there's just a small example of how we've adopted this approach, which I hope people can learn from and utilise in other fora. So that's me out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.